Have you ever received a call or email from someone demanding that you pay a debt that you didn't think you owed? Or maybe you got a friendly reminder about a bill that was due years ago and you assumed had been taken care of? Well, you're not alone. Millions of consumers are hounded by debt collectors each year. And thanks to something called zombie debt, those calls may never stop coming. So what exactly is zombie debt? How long can a debt collector pursue repayment? And what can you do if you find yourself in this situation? Let's break it down. First, let's talk about debt statutes of limitation. You have a responsibility to repay the money you borrow. However, life doesn't always cooperate. Sometimes you get unexpectedly laid off or face a medical crisis that limits your ability to work. These unexpected disruptions can make it impossible to keep up with debt payments. When that happens, the collection calls usually begin. At first, collectors may be cordial in their pursuit, but eventually they may escalate to threats of legal action. There is a reason for that urgency. Debt collectors only have a limited number of years to sue for repayment. Once that legal window closes, certain unpaid consumer debts like credit card balances are covered by a statute of limitations. Under the Federal Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, if that deadline has passed, the debt becomes time-barred. That means collectors can no longer sue or even threaten to sue you for that debt. The statute of limitations for time-barred debt varies depending on your state and the type of debt. It determines how long a creditor or collector can legally file a lawsuit to collect a debt. Importantly, just because a debt is time-barred does not mean a debt collector will stop trying to collect. In fact, some debts reappear long after they've faded from memory. This is known as zombie debt. Unscrupulous debt collectors or companies specializing in buying old debt often revive these accounts. Their goal is to get you to take an action that restarts the clock on the statute of limitations. Even if the debt is so old that it has fallen off your credit report and should no longer affect your payment history. Negative information like late payments, collections, and charge-offs typically must be removed from your credit report after 7 years. However, collecting on zombie debt can be extremely profitable. Debt buyers often purchase these defaulted debts for just pennies on the dollar, either from the original creditors or from other debt buyers and brokers. A single account, even one forgotten by the debtor, might be sold multiple times. This lack of complete records makes it easier for mistakes, harassment, or abuse to occur. Zombie debt collection efforts often target the most financially vulnerable individuals, low-income households, elderly people, and those living with disabilities. This becomes even more dangerous when lenders tighten credit, and a person's credit score becomes even more important. If you're worried about zombie debt, the first thing to do is know what you owe. Reviewing your credit reports regularly helps you not only check for accuracy, but also watch for any attempts to list or re-age debts that should have been removed. The Federal Trade Commission recommends that you ask any collector to tell you when your last payment was made. That information will help you determine whether the debt is past the statute of limitations. The length of the statute varies significantly by state, from as short as 2 years to as long as 15. Under federal law, you are entitled to one free credit report per year from each of the 3 major credit reporting agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, these bureaus began offering free weekly reports, a policy that was supposed to be temporary but has since been made permanent. You can access these reports safely and for free through the official credit report site. If you are contacted about a debt, the statute of limitations can be a legitimate legal defense. The Federal Trade Commission has reported that some debt collection companies have sent deceptive letters or postcards made to look like official documents from a municipal court. Others may claim to be affiliated with law firms or threaten legal action they are not legally allowed to take. Even if you suspect a debt collection company is violating the law, you should never ignore a formal lawsuit or court summons. You still need to appear in court or file the appropriate documents to assert that the debt is time-barred. Otherwise, the court may rule against you by default. If you can't afford a lawyer and decide to represent yourself, it's important to check your specific state laws about debt expiration. The legal self-help site Nolo has a helpful chart listing statutes of limitations by state. To find it, use the site's search function, click articles from the drop-down menu, and type in civil statutes of limitations. Be sure to double-check the chart's information to make sure it reflects the latest laws in your state. You can also seek help from your local legal aid office or your state's consumer protection agency. A directory of those agencies is available through the federal government website. As a consumer, you have rights under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Any debt collector contacting you is required to inform you of the total amount you owe and the name of the creditor. You also have the right to dispute the debt in writing. Not all debt collection claims are legitimate. Zombie debts may include obligations that were already paid off, debts that were discharged in bankruptcy, or accounts that were never yours to begin with. For example, Journalist Michelle Singletary shares that a collector once tried to pressure her into paying medical bills allegedly owed by her deceased brother. Since she hadn't co-signed for those charges, she had no legal obligation to pay them. This kind of intimidation tactic is not uncommon. It may feel intrusive and aggressive, but it's unfortunately not illegal, as long as they disclose their intent. Sometimes, the smartest move is to do nothing at all. Taking action such as making a small payment, or even acknowledging the debt in writing can restart the statute of limitations. According to the Federal Trade Commission, that clock begins again, and collectors may then be legally allowed to sue you. As unfair as it may feel, the law is on your side in these situations. Wanting to pay off your debts is admirable, but that doesn't mean you should tolerate illegal, abusive, or deceptive collection tactics, especially when the law no longer obligates you to pay.